Say your name.
Artem. OG Pinsley.
Maddie.
The Babadook.
Heather.
Just say your name.
That's not
Jeff.
Nicole.
Emily.
James Bond.
Oh, you're good. 007. Okay.
Speaking of communications, here come the sky jokes.
Hello, my name is Meg Hollingsworth, and today I will be doing a speech about direct and indirect communication. Communication problems are something that everybody has observed before, and if you never have, you're probably guilty of it. After studying the subject for a few hours, I would consider myself a professional on the two types of communication, indirect and direct. To put it simply, indirect communication is acting out your emotions, while direct communication is straightforward conversation. Learning about indirect communication can help people understand how to improve relationships between one another. If you've ever been in an argument, some individuals use methods like ignoring or trying to get even. These are considered indirect ways of communication. Indirect communication can be defined as several things, such as gestures, facial expression, tone of voice, pauses, or periods of silence in conversation. For example, if you don't like someone, usually you seem uncomfortable and try to avoid them, or act like they don't exist. Being indirect and not communicating about how you feel can be detrimental for those relationships and your own emotions. These actions get the point across, but does it solve anything? If you truly want to work through problems, confronting and being direct about your wants will make the conversation go smoother. If you spent your whole life trying to be indirect towards people, that can leave room for different interpretations of what you're actually trying to explain.
Nicole.
Another form of indirect communication is cultural barriers. When going to an unfamiliar country, chances are you only know a little bit of the language. Languages can be translated improperly, and certain cultures have different ways of expressing themselves. When talking to someone who speaks a different language, indirect communication cannot help tremendously. Using visuals like body language, different tones for emotions, or translators, like I have on my phone, like Google, you just type in what you want to say, and it writes it back in a different language, which is really cool. So if you go to another country, you can do that. John Granados is a good example of how indirect communication can put him in prison for 2 years. In 2015, he made an Alfred plea for killing his wife, and it turned out that he was not guilty, and he was actually sentenced to 5 years in jail because of a miscommunication with him and his translator. On the contrary, direct communication is the complete opposite, where the main focus is clear and effective. The definition of direct communication involves saying what a person thinks, feels, and is marked by active listening and effective feedback. It is clear, straightforward, and involves two-way, free-flowing sharing of thoughts, feelings, and ideas. Understanding direct communication skills is essential for professional jobs, foreign negotiation, and simple relationships. When I was in high school, I had a friend who would contradict everything I said. I went years ignoring her until I finally confronted her, and I was direct about what I didn't like, and she promised that she would work on it. While we have had our ups and downs since then, we have both learned to be honest and upfront about our issues instead of avoiding the problem. Now that you have been informed about direct and indirect communication skills, I'm sure you're on the edge of your seat waiting for me to tell you how you can put these in action. Having direct communication with somebody can help lead to a healthy and assertive conversation. Expressing your desires and needs can be challenging at first, but thinking of why you want to express this can help. If you don't make clear statements, your issues will most likely not be resolved how you would like. Honesty is the best policy. Beating around the bush is never a good way to handle confrontation. Indirect communication can not only leave both parties confused, but potentially change relationships, or even lives like Juan Grandado's case. To add to that, bottling up how you feel is never good. Talking through these problems not only helps alleviate the tension, but lets you express your emotions. It's not what you actually want. There are a few ways to be more direct in your communication. One is to be clear with what you want. It's not what you actually want. Save your breath then. Number 2, focus on the issue, not the person. Just because someone does something wrong doesn't make them a bad person, and you should learn to forgive them. Number 3 is don't be afraid to say no. Learn to respect yourself. You don't have to agree with anything that you don't want to. Becoming aware of different types of communication skills you can follow will guide you on how you interact with others in your future relationships. Direct and indirect communications have large effects on how you are viewed as a person. Strong, confident people are not indirect about what they want. So next time your mother asks you what you want for dinner, don't beat around the bush. Put your newfound skills to the test. Look her in the eye and tell her you want Chipotle with guacamole. Thank you. And does anybody have any questions? Please. Not seem confrontational.
While being direct.
You can use like certain things like the tone of your voice and how you talk about it. You don't have to be like a jerk, if you want to be direct. And especially if it's something that you want, you definitely want to, put kind of like some extra courage in that.
How does a person who always uses direct communication and a person who always uses indirect communication communicate?
Well, I feel like it's probably
You're not
difficult
wrong.
for an indirect person and a direct person, but also if you are a direct person, then I think when you're talking to someone, you usually tell them, and I think like direct communication is a good way to like get your point across, so it might even help the communication between you two. Relationship.
Thank you. Oh no, it's
Like,
fuck that. No.
Heather, do you have any questions?
I'm trying to
I don't know what questions to ask. This has to be 2 minutes.
How do I confront my dad in a direct way?
I just hold up a- I just hold up a-